I want to formally welcome everyone to today's webinar, The Agent of the Future. I'm Rachel, I'm going to be your webinar chairperson today. Delighted to welcome a brilliant panel of experts. Welcome back Peter Massey from Bud to one of several hundred webinars that we've run with you. Welcome, Peter. Hi, thanks for having me. Well, and do you want to introduce yourself? I'm not sure who has missed you, but we'd like an introduction.
Yeah, it's CEO of Bud, and this is my fourth business, I think. So one of those serial entrepreneurs. And as I get slightly grayer, I'm more of a customer experience historian these days than a futurologist. So we'll hopefully get into the future very shortly.
Brilliant. Well, we're looking forward to it. And delighted to welcome back Bob Stella from KBC Bank Ireland. Welcome back, Bob.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
And known all across the contact center industry, lots of roles. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying earlier, I've been in the contact center industry for about 20 years, or coming up to that soon, in a lot of different roles in a lot of different companies. So I'm hoping that I can bring to the discussion some insight about how we maybe prepare for this kind of contact center agent of the future.
Well, looking forward to your insight as well. And also delighted to welcome Jay Gupta from TalkDesk to her first webinar with us. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And for people who aren't aware of who TalkDesk are, would you like to give a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, sure. So TalkDesk is a contact center software provider. We're a cloud contact center software provider. We're a fairly young company in the sense we've been around for just over 10 years, but we're sort of a global company. And my role is Director of Product Marketing for AI. So really helping organizations adopt AI into the customer service world. And doing so without really having to, needing the technical sort of skills in-house. So that's our mission, and delighted to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you along with the rest of the panel. So just a reminder that we are running our discussion on our chat room. That's available on cch.chat or callcenterhelper.com/chat. You just need to put in your first name and your email. It is in a separate window, but hopefully you can put them side by side, or a lot of people like to run the chat room on their mobile phones. Here we go. A few added bonuses, forgetting all this all the time, that you can download a copy of all our speakers' presentations. That's available up here. And also we are running our quiz later on. So to take part, you will need to be in our chat room. The buttons to take part are down here. We are taking a recording of today's webinar, and that will be available later on this afternoon on callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. Another added bonus of being in the chat room is that we are running our champagne, box of chocolates, gift card, or even a charity donation for the best tip. You just need to write #question if you'd like to ask our panel a question, or #tip to share your top tips. So before we begin, I'm going to share a couple of polls. So I'm going to launch this one. So it's on a scale of 1 to 5. How difficult is it to recruit staff right now? Is it 5 very difficult, 4 difficult, 3 getting harder, 2 easy, or 1 very easy? Bob, what are your thoughts? If you were a betting person, what do you think is going to come out?
I think it's going to be, but yeah, no pressure. I think it's going to be a higher number than the one between 4 and 5. Is where we'll see the majority of votes. There's been a lot of feedback across the board, and a lot of talk about the difficulty at the moment with attracting talent.
Yeah. So I'm going to quickly share the results. So yeah, 42% saying getting harder, 25% saying very difficult, 29% saying difficult, 4% saying easy, and no one is saying very easy. So that's quite an interesting stat. So I'm going to stop sharing that one and quickly put up the second part, which is how difficult is it to retain staff right now? Is it very difficult, difficult, getting harder, easy, or very easy. Peter, what do you think is going to come out?
Yeah, certainly clients are telling us that they are now in the game of paying retention bonuses. Not necessarily just at the agent level, though some are, but particularly around some of the support jobs, the tech jobs, the customer experience jobs. You know, there's a lot of headhunting going on, and a lot of people being, what's the word, having gone through COVID, have chosen a lifestyle or a geography or a whatever, and there's quite a resistance to going back to you know, business as usual. Yeah.
So I will share the results. Yeah, 61% saying getting harder, 24% saying difficult, 10% saying very difficult, and 6% saying easy. So yeah, definitely getting harder to do. So I think that's a great opportunity to hand over the baton to you, Peter. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay, I'll share mine. Hopefully that's come up. Let me see on here. I just need to go to show full screen. There we go. Great. So, yeah, that's fine. That's okay?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about history, futures, where we think things sit. I've got one core theme, which I'm going to stick to around knowledge and where knowledge fits in with agent of the future. And I'll put a couple of links into what I know Bob and Jay are going to talk to, but I don't want to steal their thunder in terms of what they understand, obviously, of the agent future and the future of the technology, what's going on with AI, which is changing very rapidly. So Agent of the Past of Future is quite interesting. These cartoons were done in 2007. We still haven't quite got to thought transference, although it's 15 years later. But maybe dehumanizing work conditions are still around. You know, the old Satanic Mills story has been running for 25 years. I think particularly in the UK, we're a lot better at that now than we used to be. Working in call centers has become, you know, somewhere where people are treated with respect and properly. I can't always say that for some of the other countries which we work in. Let's see what's going on here. I think I'm trapped into Zoom. Bear with me a second. There we go. So again, historically, this report was written in 2006 by BT, and you can see the titles on there. You can see the kind of stuff that we're talking about: right sizing, home shoring, home sourcing, telephony to multi-channel contact, you know, the network model, etc., etc. That report could be written today. The answers might look slightly different, but the topics are still broadly the same. So I do wonder whether in 15 years further on, we'll actually be, you know, dealing with a lot of things that are the same and maybe a few things that are different. The problem is, though, it's like glacial change. Most changes around human beings interacting with each other or with machines are fairly glacial. So they move very, very slowly, and then all of a sudden a great big chunk falls off the end of the glacier and creates an iceberg and a huge, great splash. And so it's not always possible to predict when something's going to break through in terms of what will happen to change the future of the agent. So as Ernest Hemingway was quoted as saying, how did you go bankrupt? 2 ways: gradually, then suddenly. And I think this is what we see in the future of the agent, is that things change very slowly and then suddenly they change. And obviously we've seen a lot of that with home working over the last wee while. Agents working from home now is probably, you know, in the UK at the moment, the majority of agents are probably working from home rather than working from contact centers. And that transition came in very rapidly, obviously, through the necessity. It's not new, though. Again, back in 2007, we were on a conference on home working back then. This was one of the slides I used at the time, the shed. As you can see on there, it's for people who work in sheds and shed-like atmospheres. And And it's kind of amusing now looking back at it historically. But the point is, a lot of people have worked from home for quite a long time, maybe not to the same degree. But it's not a new topic. And all of the material that was floating around 15 years ago is still highly appropriate today. And maybe the Prime Minister has changed his mind slightly about what he thinks to do with home working. I always find this quote quite amusing. It's one I used again at the time in 2007. Obviously, the point that this brings home, though, is that I don't think agents really had the same issues with working from home as managers do. So if you've got a small kitchen and a dog that barks and kids at home, the problem 15 years ago is the same problem today. The technology has changed, but the problem is still the same. But if you've got a manager who doesn't, who thinks you're, sloth, apathy, and staring out the window, the real problem is that the organizations have had to change, and COVID has enabled people to do that. And it's very interesting to see whether that's on an elastic band and is going to snap back, or whether actually that piece of elastic's been cut. And certainly I'm seeing in our client base quite different attitudes about that. Still quite early for insisting that people go back in the office, but nevertheless, there's quite a few companies trying to do that now. So glacial change, the end of the glacier snaps off, big splash, things change, and that's the way we feel it. my sort of core point, though, I think about the future of the agent is that knowledge bases have moved on. Excuse me a sec. The types of technologies that we use for knowledge bases and the way we as customers use knowledge bases to get answers has changed because they've got a lot better. And for me, the knowledge base and the agent are in some ways the same thing. That you want resolution to a question you've got or a situation you've got, and you don't, it's the agent or the knowledge base. Really, I'm quite ambivalent as long as I don't have to do too much work. So this example on the screen here for Nest, you've got the help center, the community, you've got the search, you've got some prompts down the bottom for browsing help topics. These things we take for granted, but the quality of the result that you get is hugely variable, depending what's there. And knowledge bases can mean all of these things: help, FAQs, search, videos, a lot of YouTube videos helping people out. Community is particularly strong in terms of where do I look first? If, as a Mac user, you always look in the Apple community to see what people are talking about first. Progressively, I use that more and more with cars, because people talk about what a car's good for, not good for, etc. Of course, we're all used to it in TripAdvisor and Rate Your Doctor in Singapore and all sorts of things. Articles, people produce articles, but they're not always easy to read. And I was looking on the site this morning, Rachel, about the article you've got as lead article there, about the difficulty people have in accessing the right answers through knowledge bases. But of course, the other thing is a lot of knowledge is in people's heads. What does an agent do who's clever? What was clever was to know a lot. What is clever is to be able to use a knowledge base really well. What's going to be clever? That's the question. And I think there's a couple of key things here. So one is the agent as author, editor, as well as user of a knowledge base. And again, this is not a new theme. I saw this going on at, say, Surrey County Council back, well, it must have been 15 years ago. We took Microsoft, BBC, Surrey County Council around to see each other, just talking about knowledge bases and how they use things. And it was really interesting to see how, because an agent could edit the information that was going out, they were able to put relevant information to the front page at the right time of the day, and get answers to things like parking problems around schools at 9 o'clock in the morning. Bins being emptied was a 10 o'clock problem when people got home, or a 6 o'clock problem when people got home. So these sorts of things came because people who talk to customers all day long know what these problems are and can do something with them. And they can write snappily, and they can write in the customer's language in the way that it works. And so it behoves us to try and think about agent skill and how we use that in that way. classic example was EE, who won one of the call center awards again back in 2014, which, you know, quite a long time ago now. They had a team of, they took 20 agents out of the thousands of staff that they had and put them on rotation, actually producing knowledge articles to answer the frequently asked questions and to support the agent through the knowledge base as well as the customer. So it's not a new thing, but I still find it very rare. I find lots of people talking about CRM systems and platforms and this, that, and the other. If you put as much effort into your knowledge base and making your knowledge base work for customers and for staff, that can, for me, have a bigger impact than in many other directions. And it's certainly, if you permit your agents to work on this, it makes a big difference to how they feel about their job, because they don't feel like they've just got to handle these dumb things with dumb answers. They actually can do something about it. So to illustrate that, again, not a new case, but this is going back quite a few years. This has been 2012, I think. We did a project with the concierge service 10, probably better known for, you know, dealing with very high value requests. Two of my daughters actually worked at 10. Things like, you know, I need a Bugatti now and I need it to be pink, and, you know, strange requests at that end of the scale, as well as, you know, where do I get tickets for this theatre show tonight? But they started a business on behalf of the whatever the department was called, the FE, is it? Department for Education. And it was to help head teachers with the same sort of, what are all the questions that head teachers ask? How can we give them a website that enables them to get those answers once we've given them the freedom away from local government to buy their things direct, and everything from, you know, school teachers to pencils. And what we did was we put the website together by operating a small call center staffed by journalists. So the journalists would receive the question, they would research the best answers, they would publish those answers concisely and well written, and then they would take feedback from the calls that they were still getting and improve those answers that were there. And they got the hit rate up to 99 point something percent for people, head teachers, being able to get the answers they wanted. And it's that ability to refine and optimize what resolves a problem for somebody, which is really important. And now that we've got AI as well, which is helping those improvements, there's a real interest in, you know, how do we use those journalistic skills from agents and work that with AI. And I'll stop there, because otherwise I know Jay's going to talk with great enthusiasm about that subject. Okay, so that's a core subject. So I think to bring that home, Richard Brimble, lovely guy. When I first met him at Affinity Water, I think it was around 2001, he said this to me, and at the time it was very shocking. And today, I still think a lot of people would be surprised by it. You know, the job of an agent is not just to answer the calls and resolve the problem. The job is also to make sure it doesn't happen again to other customers. So actually, you know, re-editing knowledge bases, or progressively, the problem is one of going back into the organization because somebody else somewhere upstream in logistics or marketing, sales or whatever has said something which doesn't make sense to customers, and you're left handling that problem. The John Lewis ad with the little boy in the dress going around painting the house and smashing the house up, you've probably seen it in the press the last couple of days, is a classic. You know, somebody in marketing thought that would be great advertising for insurance, didn't actually check that you don't cover deliberate damage under that John Lewis insurance policy. So the ad has had to be pulled. It's a crass illustration, but that's what call center agents face every day of the week, is somebody in the organization not understanding how it affects the customer, and that contact comes through from it. The model I use, the mental model I use for this, I wrote this up for an article earlier in the year, is to think about this stairway to heaven, that actually what customers want is a perfect journey at the top of the screen there. And to give that perfect journey, what one is doing is looking at the platform you're using, the site or the mobile apps or the physical equivalent, looking at the analytics, understanding the psychology of the interaction, and optimizing all the time that perfect journey. Now, the problem is, if we go into the red stairs, you know, what happens to customers inevitably is we get to the point where we need help. So ideally what should happen is the machine should spot the need for that help. Your Tesla tells you the indicator's not working. You don't, the help comes up on the screen. The manual tells you how to get the light fitting off and change the bulb and where to source the bulb, or it tells you this is a problem, you need to get it in the shop. So needing help and providing it in context is the first step. If that context isn't there and you need to resolve the problem, then I've got to look for that help. So where do I get it? Ideally, if it's not in context, I find it in the user community, or I find it in the channel that I'm already on, which is why I prefer chat rather than phoning somebody, because I don't have to go anywhere and do something. But if I need to come off and go to a separate website or phone something, I get self-service, again, hopefully that works. If it doesn't, I'm then through to the agent in the assisted service. But all of that going on, the assisted service is really the diagnostic of all those steps above, and what could be done to make all those steps above work. And so you can see the sort of side of the escalator along there. Customer gets resolution, tries harder or gives up. But leaders focus on staying upstream. They focus the agents on using contact intelligence to improve what's going on upstream. And that's the way I think about agents and knowledge as being so vital to what we do. Okay, so I mean, in that process, obviously what you're trying to do is simplify and automate as many things as you can. That leaves more complexity for people to deal with, obviously. One of the key things for me there, I mentioned it during the intros earlier on, is about understanding customer intent. That actually don't just think of automation or agent, think of these two dimensions of value and irritant. So something which irritates customers and your company, in this case, a utility example, is something you need to eliminate, not automate. Something which is valuable to you and valuable to the customer, that's where you want your agents to be. That's where you want your people to be. And the other two quadrants, there has to be a benefit to the customer if you're going to automate, because otherwise they won't work through your automation. If you've got a regulatory letter, simplify it. Don't automate the process of using it. It doesn't work. Okay, so it's a very clear way of looking at of how to get that simplification and automation to work. And finally, just to finish up on, I think, Jay, you mentioned it in the introduction, there's a really important thing now about the character of the machines that we talk to, because so many of those steps are not us talking to an agent. We can have an agent with empathy, but we need our machines to have empathy in the way that they talk to us. And it's quite interesting when you talk to Siri or Alexa, or the characteristics. You can read articles about the way they design the characteristics of those voices, and the way that they answer is being quite different. So there's quite a lot to think about for the future of the agent. But I think the most critical thing is to be able to understand the agent in the context of all of the other channels that we're using in that way. So to finish, to misquote Eleanor Roosevelt, to handle yourself, use your head, to handle others, use your heart. I think actually with agents, you've got to use your head and your heart. And you've got to use, with digital contact, you've got to use your head and your heart. And you've got to use agents and digital contact together in that way. Thanks, Rachel.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Peter. We're just going to ask in the chat room if you could write in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about Peter's presentation? Great things coming up, Peter. My key takeaways were, agents need to be authors, editors of the knowledge base. It's a skill not often thought about. I really liked, the quote from Richard Brimble: the job is not just to answer the calls and resolve the problem, it's to make sure it doesn't happen to other customers. And your Stairway to Heaven graphic, people getting stuck at the bottom and need to think agent intelligence and continuity, moving up each step rather than just getting stuck. Brilliant things. Thank you very much for that. So the chat room has been buzzing away, so I'm going to share a few quick audience tips. So Sana said, not only is it getting harder to hire staff in the competitive market, but it's getting harder to keep the staff. Employees are now looking for more than just good pay. They want flexibility, support, and growth. Peter, we were having this whole discussion yesterday about this topic. It's not just recruiting, it's actually retaining as well.
Very much a war for talent out there, I think, and you can see it actually in some conversations with clients is that one of the reasons they're working very, very hard on their digital journeys is they cannot replace the staff. They can't just go to the market and add more, bums on seats in that sense. So they are thinking much harder about this continuity between the agent and the digital channels.
Yeah. So Raymond said, treat your staff with empathy as much you want your staff to treat customers with empathy. So Lewis said, recruit in parallel industries, e.g. while I was staffing for an automobile telemarketing group, I started recruiting salespeople at an automobile dealership. These in-person salespeople preferred the steady hours and access to more potential customers. So Aaron sent in an opinion. I'm just going to move that over. Having been forced to send everyone home, companies have created a challenge with employee expectations. Companies may not have prepared for the home working, may not have created policies or recruited the right people. Some companies flexed existing scheduling to the max, creating an expectation for the agents. Returning these agents to the office needs to be thought out as their understanding of flexibility has now changed since pre-COVID. Bob, an important topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of risk. We were rushed into changing from office space to home working for a majority of people, or at least kind of part and part very quickly. But I think that nearly 2 years later, we've proven that it's sustainable in most contact center environments that I've worked with since. And I doubt there's many that are still struggling to maintain that reality. So is there, we really got a challenge. Is there a need to go back to pre-COVID setups? What value does it really add? Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I think that's a great opportunity to hand over for your presentation.
Thank you.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll try to share my screen quickly. Is that working? Let's see, let me know.
Perfect.
Okay, so contact center agent of the future, and I had to adjust the title slightly to revisit it, because in fact I delivered this presentation just before the pandemic at another conference, and it was just really nice to be asked to do it again and revisit the same topic a while later. Now, I delivered this on the 2nd of March 2020. I put down 21 BLD, that's 21 days before lockdown was first announced, and flew over to London with a lot of disinfectant and hand gel, and delivered this presentation. I'll give you a quick summary of it. I was challenging a little bit some of the assumptions around the title of, how do we prepare for the contact center agent of the future? The question of what would the agent of the future look like should maybe be replaced by what do we want our agent of the future to look like? Because they're not going to just magically appear and we have to deal with them. We have to prepare our people to deal with that environment. So it's our responsibility as contact center leaders, experts, etc., to shape that future. The other question is, are we talking about a universal agent, someone who can really do everything? We talk about omni-channel, omnipresent nearly customer service, where no matter how you get through to us, we'll deal with all your problems at the first contact. Is that reality possible given the knowledge that's required? Or rather than universal agents, are we still going to see the least experienced people in our company? Because ultimately, in most places I've visited, contact center agents are the lowest paid, newest people in the organization. And that's a reality we just have to keep in mind. Thirdly, is there one simple thing that we really need to do for our customers in the future? And I think a better question again would be, how many different things will our customers need us to do? because the reality of the future is probably complex. We're not sure, but that's what it feels like. And you heard it from Peter's presentation earlier. There's a multitude of reasons why that we would say that that future is complicated, or that we can make it complicated, for example, by introducing new roles and new expectations, such as authoring, or contributing knowledge bases, contributing to continuous improvement, and maybe the integration between people and technology that Jay will talk to later on. 2 years ago, or thereabouts, I summarized this as these 3 points. We choose how to develop our people. We have to accept that they are the least experienced people in our company. We have to accept that they will require a lot of different skills. And I therefore concluded that it's unreasonable to think that one agent can do it all. In fact, quite the opposite. We should expect to remain in a world where we will need different agents of the future to work together to achieve what we're going to need to achieve. Since then, I've summarized this slightly differently. I'll share this with you now. We have this uncertainty of what our long-term knowledge requirements will actually look like. We don't know exactly what skills will be required or how we're going to work. There is an inability, though, to retain all the necessary knowledge. So another way to put it is, we won't know what we need until we need it, but we're pretty sure it's going to be more than we can handle. It's not a great picture of a starting environment. However, if I'm thinking about how do we prepare people for this, there are 2 core skills, which I said then would be useful. First one is learning how to learn fast, because we're not going to get a lot of time. When the iceberg falls off the glacier, you have to react there and then, as happened with the pandemic and the change in the question that you just raised, Rachel, highlighted that. And there's every university in the country will tell you that one of the first things they have to do with undergraduate is really teach them how to learn and go through that process with them. And it's a really important skill set that people carry with them. The second skill that I advocated is learning how to collaborate effectively, because if you can't individually know everything that's needed, then you're going to have to know how to rely on others to achieve the same objective as a team. And that's hard to do in a contact center environment, but maybe we don't need all of our staff to be authors, following Peter's example. Maybe there's just 1 or 2 per team that really play that part and champion that role. Maybe not all of them need to be experts on automation, robotics, AI, but some of them can champion the role of those things and help improve the integration between things. Some are better empathy, some other things. Collaborating is a skill set, and there's ways that we can do it. And I think there's ways in which organizations can be structured to be more collaborative in nature, and that could add value. So the real question, though, is, did this advice that I provided on the 2nd of March last year actually stand up to the massive challenges that I could not ever have predicted that have happened since, right? So what's changed since then? Well, one thing is we've continued to automate our work and to digitalize our approach to customer service across the customer service industry. That's made changes for the way we work and the way we interact with customers. We've certainly had a change in demand from our own people, as per that question you just raised, Rachel, about the change in demand for flexibility in work. And then finally, we threw in a global pandemic just to shake things up a little bit. In terms of the symptoms of these 3 things, the automation has continued to add complexity to our work by simplifying the simple things. That trend continues slowly. And then it's caused more of a need to integrate RPA and AI interactions with customers with our own face-to-face or over the phone, human to human interactions as well, because from a customer point of view, we want that to feel like one continuous journey. Changing the demand for work. Obviously, we had to adapt to having indirect access to colleagues, indirect access to knowledge. You can't just put your hand up. Our processes, internal processes, have had to digitalize, and we had to learn how to do that. And we've had to deal with severely changed attrition and recruitment patterns, which again, we've just been talking about. The global pandemic, very similarly, caused us increased absence at the start. We had people going off for a long period of time, isolation, etc. We've had to, in some industries, change our products for the customers or the way they access those products or use those products and services. And then we've had a big increase in the vulnerability of our customers and the need for empathy in such a delicate situation. All of this we could sum up as the new normal. That's the cheesiest sentence of the decade, one I hate, but it's appropriate in this context. That new normal has meant that we've had to learn to work flexibly. We had to manage our people remotely without really being able to see them. Collaborating with bots and AI, moving to new teams, and new people coming in to work with us, and also changing the way we work so that we can be covered for should we have to go away for a long period of time. And a lot of people around the country have actually had to move industry completely as the workplace has changed dramatically. 2 years ago, I was saying, know how to learn fast, know how to collaborate. I still think, and I'm convinced that had we had more of those skills developed and better developed at the start of the pandemic, we would have adapted much more easily and less painfully for our colleagues. And I still think that the advice is sound, and it's why I still continue to promote it internally within my teams and and outside through webinars and things like this. Another way to think about this a little bit further, because I've been lucky to work with people like Peter, Clive Wilson, others who have always challenged me to think a little bit more broadly about what I do than just the contact center I'm in. These skills, yes, they're absolutely valuable for our day-to-day job. I really think we can be more effective and adaptable for the future and ready for the future. They are also skills that will help us for our careers. And I'm sure many of you know, as you progress through the ranks, that adaptability to new knowledge and skills and the ability to link in with others and work well and effectively with your peers are key to success. Overall, I really think that this helps us create a much better work environment. I want to work in a place where people are eager to learn, know how to do it, can help me learn faster, and know how to collaborate with each other. And then finally, especially if we add a little caveat to the collaboration and say we have to collaborate through diversity, then really what we're building is some skills for a better society. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Bob. I'm just going to come back and say, just a reminder that we're coming to our quiz just now. So you will need to be in our chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat, or just type in cch.chat. Once you've logged in, maybe you could share in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about Bob's presentation? Some great takeaways. One agent can't do it all. And, instead of thinking of just one style of the agent of the future, think how, the whole team can move to the future, not just that one agent doing all of it. And, very importantly, know how to learn fast and collaborating while adapting to the new normal. Don't like that phrase, but yeah, it does kind of summarize everything. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, we're coming to our quiz. So a reminder that the buttons can be found in the chat room. They're just down here. And to vote, you need to press, if you think it's answer A, then you click the blue button, answer A. So I'm going to scroll across and click play. So last chance to take part, callcenterhelp.com/chat. So, oh, there we go, got it right in the middle. True or false, more than 40% of contact centres expect advisor numbers to decrease in the next 5 years. Is it A, true, or B, false? So true or false, more than 40% of contact centres expect advisor numbers to decrease in the next 5 years. A, true, or B, false? Last chance. So most people getting that one right. It is A, true. 42% of contact centres expect their advisor population to decrease over the next 5 years. This is much more than the percentage that expect numbers to either increase or stay the same. So Aaron's currently in the lead. So according to our readers, which of the following advisor trends is having the biggest impact on their contact centre? Is it A, becoming more dependent on the knowledge base, B, expecting more from the workplace, C, getting difficult to motivate, or D, wanting more career progression opportunities? So according to our readers, which of the following advisor trends is having the biggest impact on their contact centre? Is it A, becoming more dependent on the knowledge base, B, expecting more from the workplace, C, getting difficult to motivate, or D, wanting more career progression opportunities? Actually, a bit split across the board. It was actually B, expecting more from the workplace. Young agents are generally not as inclined to just show up at work and get on with it. They want to enjoy their time at work and to feel that the work they do matters. Slight change at the top. Question 3, what is the most common frequency of measuring advisor engagement? Is it A, weekly, B, monthly, C, quarterly, or D, annually? What is the most common frequency of measuring advisor engagement? Weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually? Last chance. Actually, most people getting that one wrong. It is actually D, annually. Worryingly, 29% of contact centres only measure advisor engagement once every year, with a further 19% not tracking engagement rates at all. Same, TM1. Right, final question. Who once said the future depends on what we do in the present? Was it A, Eleanor Roosevelt, B, Nelson Mandela, C, Mahatma Gandhi, or D, Martin Luther King? Who once said the future depends on what we do in the present? Eleanor Roosevelt, B, Nelson Mandela, C, Mahatma Gandhi, or D, Martin Luther King? And the answer is actually Mahatma Gandhi. Another thought-provoking quote from him is, if I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning. Woo, quite a tongue twister. And the winner is TM1. We will be in touch after the webinar to sort out your prize. So I'm delighted to hand over to Jay for your presentation now. So I will stop sharing.
Sure, okay, let me just try and get my screen up. Okay.
Perfect.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so the agent of the future. So I mean, at TalkDesk, we consider the changing landscape of customer service a lot when we set our product roadmap. And designing for the agent of the future is a big part of where we put our innovation efforts, particularly around how agents will make AI and automation a success because it is delivering better outcomes for customer service. And when we think about how we are reshaping the role of agents, it's really important to connect frontline workers to new technology like AI, which is making its way into the contact center in terms of a critical enabler for business growth, but also as a critical support aid for agents, and empowering them to support business growth and the changing landscape of customer service that is getting deeper into the digital world. And so we're passionate about this idea that contact center agents are critical to the success of the adoption of new technology like AI, and in many ways making the agents the custodians of AI and automation. And so here's a sort of a theoretical list of potential new tasks for agents, either leading into the creation of entirely new roles, such as an AI training manager, or perhaps weaved into the agent job role itself. And a lot of these tasks are related to a tool that we actually built for agents, which we call AI Trainer, and it's about applying their customer service expertise to make sure that AI can reliably power automation and the various tools that use AI across the contact center. And these tools will include those that will kind of empower agents to help them resolve customer cases correctly and quickly. And then, these are tools like Agent Assist, but also how they can, what Peter talked about earlier about improving the knowledge base and authoring answers as well. And the reasons why we think, this is important is because AI does need human expertise to shape it, fine tune it, and ensure that it's continuously accurate. And, we see a lot of big tech companies like Facebook, Apple, and Netflix, and so on, who are extremely successful with AI. Perhaps a lot of us are probably not aware of how much human intervention is involved. So they have an army of data scientists who train the various data, AI models powering their platforms and products. And a big part of this is labeling data, something called data annotation. So, these data scientists are firstly, they're scarce resources, and they're very expensive resources as well. And they're highly qualified professionals, but they don't necessarily know a lot about customer service. And certainly, they don't have that practical knowledge that agents have. So we really sort of drive forward with this idea that non-technical staff are the ones that can operationalize AI and new technology, including what Peter mentioned earlier about the knowledge base and not needing to have technical skills, but really applying your expertise into the way technology is improving outcomes for customer service. So this presents a lot of opportunities for what the future agent could be doing. I just want to share a quick story. I think it's Ocado, who are a technology company that happens to deliver groceries. And they use a lot of AI and a lot of bots. And they have a program where they reskill and upskill frontline workers like delivery drivers to become, I think they call them bot operators. So effectively working with the technology, operating the technology so that it continuously works accurately. So I think that's a really good example of what's possible in the contact center. And so when it comes to AI, training AI, and the tool that I mentioned, AI Trainer, it's possible because of human in the loop technology and how we can extend that into the contact center and enabling agents to train AI. And as I said, that's about empowering non-technical staff to train AI without needing any coding skills, but also reducing the dependency on professional services such as data scientists, but also having a nice and a neat way to easily maintain and fine-tune the accuracy and the predictive power of AI. And if you do that continuously, it's definitely the most efficient way to ensure that your AI is working and automation is accurately working across the contact center. But also it means that you can resolve more customer cases through that accuracy. And also the agents themselves will benefit from that fine-tuning because the tools that are supporting them in their jobs work accurately and they can trust it. So just one final slide here. So all of what I've just described here it's possible to bring this in to the existing operational loop of the contact center, but carving out perhaps some new roles or tasks for the supervisors and agents so that they can collectively work together to fine-tune AI with a tool without needing the technical skills, but just really focusing on their knowledge of customer service and what customers want and what answers they're looking for, so that the end customer is getting answers to questions correctly and quickly. And that could be whether this is a customer who's coming in through an unassisted self-service path using something like an AI-powered virtual agent, or an assisted path with a live agent who is supported with an AI tool like Agent Assist, and of course connected to a knowledge base. So yeah, that's it. That's it from me. I'll stop sharing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I'm just going to put up a quick poll and ask everyone, would you like to see a demonstration of some of the things that Jay was talking about? Just type that in. Some great takeaways. You know, I really liked the slide on reshaping the role of the contact center agent, you know, new tasks such as training the AI, you know, and even thinking further along the line of being a manager and, you know, managing not only agents, but also robots and things. You know, the human in the loop technology enables agents to train the AI, not just, you know, the really complex ones. And, you know, AI is only as good as the agents that train it. So, yeah, really great. So I'm going to stop that one. And we've got time for a few top tips and questions. So Gio, very keen to share this with us, psychological workshops. So thank you for that one. So Peter said, you have to decide how much time to give agents to collaborate and to learn. Let people out of the traditional agent box and they'll get the core work done much more effectively. Jay, what's your thoughts on this one? Oh, I'll come to you, Bob, in a minute.
Sorry, yeah. So letting people out of the traditional agent box and getting forward. Yeah, I think getting out of any traditional box is what we all want to do, right? And I think we want change. Doing the same thing day in, day out is not, it's no fun for anybody. So collaboration, you know, is a key part of that. But having the, again, it comes down to having the right tools and the technologies, and it's about sort of making sure that the technology and people can work together to, you know, to drive better outcomes. Yeah, and Bob, you know, that's echoing your presentation exactly.
Absolutely, that's a winner for me. It has my vote as a top tip. Absolutely true.
Brilliant. So Kelly sent in a tip saying you can only coach and develop agents that wish to be coached and developed. Sometimes as managers, we need to accept that being a CSA is a short-term job, stopgap, stepping stone, and we should adapt to what they wish to get out of the role. Bob, this is something that we've discussed quite a lot, you know, that it is that kind of stepping stone. What are your thoughts on this?
Completely. I completely agree. It's I think it is an entry-level job. I think it'll remain an entry-level job in most companies. The question isn't, you know, whether people want to make a career out of it as much as how much can you learn through being a CSA or agent, so that you can then progress in the company. Now, as per the point there, some people may be happy in that role and not want to be coached and developed further. And that may be the case. And I think, again, that's where the collaboration part comes back. You will have a diverse group of people. You need to find what's appropriate. People will have different skills. And if you can find a way to leverage that diversity to the advantage of the team, I think that's a winning point.
Fab, thank you. And Peter, what are your thoughts on this tip?
Well, I think, yeah, understanding the motivation of the individual is absolutely essential, whether they, you know, are there for social reasons or just for the money or whatever it might be. But I think also the organization has to be clear what its parameters are so that you're not recruiting the wrong kind of people. Again, we mentioned this before the start about alignment. Is actually you need the right people for the right experience that you're expecting to give. So matching up.
Thank you. And we've got one final opinion from Neil, who said the problem is keeping hold of people once you give them the AI skills. Jay, I mean, you know, a very key point, actually.
It is a key point, and yeah, definitely a challenge. But I think, you know, as employers, it's our responsibility to nurture employees, right? And it's important that we give them new skills. So it's not just about AI skills; it's any new skills. But you know, would you want to have it any other way, really?
Yeah.
If I can add a point on that,
Yes.
there was a cartoon, a little comic that stuck with me from about 15 years ago. It was just like the chief financial officer of a company saying to the CEO, what if we invest all this time training people and then they leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't invest in them and then they stay?
Yes.
And I think that really stuck with me then, and I think it's pertinent here as well.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've reached the end of our webinar. So in the chat room, if you could share in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about today's webinar? Today's winning tip is from Emma, who said, have open and honest conversations with your staff to understand what they want from you as an employer and how you can support their career development. If they feel engaged, valued and cared for, they're far more likely to stay, or be honest if they're thinking of moving on. So congratulations, we will be in touch after the webinar. A reminder that we have got our survey, so if you could complete that when you leave, it's only 4 questions long. And a reminder that we will have a recording later on this afternoon, normally about an hour's time, on callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. So a reminder that next week is actually our 300th webinar, so come and celebrate with us. But today's webinar, just want to say thank you very much to our brilliant panel of experts for sharing everything. Peter Massey from Bud, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel.
And Bob Stella, delighted to welcome you back as well.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back. Yeah.
Brilliant. And to Jay Gupta from TalkDesk, hope you enjoyed your first webinar. Thank you very much for being online with us.
Absolutely did. And yeah, hopefully there'll be more.
Brilliant, I'm sure so. And thank you, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, bye.
Cheers.